Welcome to the Evolving Angels wrap-up. I had to shave my head. I was trimming my hair for a job interview, and the guide, I think I held it the wrong angle, and it kind of shaved all of this. And my options were to either shave this completely flat, which would look strange, or just trim everything, or just shave off everything. So I decided to just shave off everything. Um, Fortunately, the job that I'm applying for is a warehouse position, so I'm sure that this is not too unusual, even though I think it looks silly. But that's not what we're here to talk about. We're here to wrap up and kind of evaluate the deck and figure out exactly where this deck stands. So without further ado, let's move into that. Our second matchup was against green-white tokens, or Selesnya tokens as it's sometimes called. I actually think this deck does pretty well against Selesnya tokens. I know it doesn't look like that from the way that I played it, but if you actually watch the videos and realize that I made a few play mistakes, I actually think it works. If I had had one more turn there, I would have been able to cast Bruna and put Gisela into play and meld them into Brunella. And I was actually ready to do that. I didn't realize that Avacyn would have flipped 3 times. If I had blocked, there was one combat where there was a lot of creatures, but they only attacked with the Avacyn and the Tireless, or the 3/3 Knight. And I knew I didn't want to block the Knight with my Tireless Tracker. And I knew I didn't want to block his Brunella with his Avacyn with my Avacyn, because his Avacyn had counters on it. But I don't know that I considered blocking the Knight with my Avacyn, because my camera wasn't working then. I don't remember what I had said. I was recording the voice after the fact, and that was a mistake. If I had done that, I would have survived one more turn that I needed to get out Brunella. The other thing is he attacked with his Gideon right before I lost. If I had realized I was going to lose, I would have chump blocked the Gideon. I thought that I would be fine, and that I could get out the Gisela next turn. I wasn't worried about it. But the fact is that I didn't, and I didn't block. I should have chump blocked. And so, yes, I made play errors, and I think that cost me the game. And the second game, I had a statistical outlier where I didn't get any creatures at all. I kept the hand because I had Eldritch Evolution and Stasis Snare, but I just didn't draw any creatures, and that's an outlier. That shouldn't happen with this deck. Maybe I should have mulliganed that hand, and yes, mulliganing is one of the things. The 2 main errors that I know I'm making in probably all of those matches is that I was not mulliganing when I should have been, mulliganing when I shouldn't have been, and sideboarding errors. I'm sure anybody who plays Magic more regularly than I do realizes that no, these are errors, and this deck actually does better than he thinks it does. But given all that, I think that this deck does better against GW tokens. And actually, Def from SBMTG says, I was chatting with him in the comments, says that this deck actually dominates GW tokens. It's actually one of the better matchups for this deck. I just made a few play errors, and that cost me the game. And the second match was a single game versus Crixus Control, and the biggest mistake I made there, well, actually I didn't make a mistake. I kind of got color screwed in that my Evolving Wilds had brought out a forest, and then I couldn't even use Eldritch Evolution. So if I had, and actually I'm watching it right now as I'm talking here, and I actually brought out the forest before I even had the Eldritch Evolution. I should have gotten the white mana, because Eldritch Evolution wasn't even a guarantee at that point. And also, I have no experience playing against Crixus Control. Crixus Control isn't played in my local meta. It's not a new deck by any means. I just have no familiarity with it because I just haven't seen it. And so that was the biggest error there. And he only played the one game. I had sideboarded things that I thought would help. And I have a feeling that I actually would have done okay in the next matchups, but I never got a chance because he quit after the first game, which is disappointing. And I know I'm saying after he got Transgressive Mind, I just said, oh, that right there is the reason this deck don't work. But yeah, I I was a little bit salty. I get a little bit salty when I lose repeatedly. So we only played one game, which we lost. We didn't play a full match. So I'm not going to count that as part of the matches, which is why I did an extra one. The next matchup was against Jund Emerge, and again we went 0-2. And again, I mostly made errors because I wasn't familiar with the deck. It's not a deck I've ever seen played before. There's only one Emerge deck at my local FNM, and I didn't see it at all during the regionals. The only player who plays Emerge at my FNM plays Is It Emerge with Majoring Nexus, Eldritch Fiend, Drowner of Hope. And actually there was one point in the video where I said, oh, I expect him to play, I didn't finish the sentence, because I was like, and I edited this out, but I was like, I expect him to play, oh, wait, he's not playing blue, so we can't do that. And I never actually finished the sentence, but I was going to say, I am expecting him to cast Eldritch Fiend right now, because that was a point in the match where the Is It Emerge would do that. I'm like, oh wait, he doesn't even have blue. I even misidentified the colors. I was like, I called it Sultani, and Sultani is a different color altogether. I believe Sultani is blue, green, black. Because I'm not used to thinking of Jund as being control. I'm used to thinking of Jund as being aggro, because I used to play back in Shards of Alara, and I've just never seen these colors be control, and that's what this was control into Emerge. Our fourth match was against Gruul Ramp, and again we went 0-2. And again, I think that largely the reason that I lost was because I misidentified the deck. I didn't know what the deck was. I've never played against it, or I knew what the deck was, but I've never played against it. Again, I don't know why. Gruul Ramp is just not in my meta. It's not a new deck. Again, it used technology that's been around for a while. Had I realized, and now I know, first thing you want to do is take out the ramp, take out the mana dorks. And I remember there was one point in the first game where I was like, oh, I want a Declaration in Stone, the Eilvenwald captive, because reasons. And I didn't go into what the reasons were. And the reasons that I had weren't even good reasons. I don't even remember. The reasons that I had was I didn't want him to get enough mana to flip it to attack me. That was my reasons. But if I had done that, even then, honestly, I should have deck stoned the first one, the Death Cap Cultivator. But at the time that I said, oh, I should probably Declaration in Stone the Eilvenwald Captain because reasons, the very next turn, or maybe it was the turn after, he cast Dragonlord Atarka. And if he had had one less mana, he would not have been able to cast Dragonlord Atarka right then. I was right not to kill the Regent, but the best play would have been to get rid of the mana dork on the second or third turn, whichever turn it was. But when I said I should kill this because of reasons, I should have done it. I was like, I want to save this. I want to save this for something else. Don't. You want, against Gruul Ramp, you want to take out the ramp. And I remember being so pissy after that match. I didn't even do an outro. I just said, okay, that match is done. Stop recording. But it's a good thing I've got a day job because I had time to edit that video, I had time to upload that video, and then I went to work. And then when I came back from work, I felt better. If I had played straight through, I would have remained busy, and I would have been like, I'm losing all the time. But I loosened up a little bit. I decided to, you know what, this deck is busted. I don't even care anymore. I'm just going to play the best of it and just see where it goes. And then the next opponent was a really cool guy. He was playing a deck that I had never seen before. So we were playing against Esper the Tongue Twister deck. Esper Exile. There we go. Got there. And that was a really cool deck. I really like that deck because it's one that I hadn't seen before, but it's one that no one has seen before. I don't think. It's not just one that I haven't seen before that's been around forever and everybody knows that it's good. It's one that's good, and I don't think anybody plays. I don't think anyone else has really thought about using those cards in that combination. I have thought about using the Exile stuff from the ESV, or Oath, or whichever those two sets is from. I have thought about using that stuff. I just didn't know what would work very well with it. I have a thing with Magic where sometimes I'll take long breaks and won't play for forever. Then I'll start playing again, and I'll keep playing for a few years, and I'll stop playing. With something like this channel going, that probably won't happen. But I actually started getting back into it with Shadows over Innistrad. My roommate bought a bunch of boxes and said, "Hey, you know what? I have all these boxes. I'm only using one deck. If you want to use my cards that I'm not using, go ahead." So that's kind of the reason why I got back to it. But I haven't played through BSV. I started with SOI. And I was going through this stuff and looking at when this comes into play, do stuff with exiled creatures and with your opponent's exiled cards, and it does other stuff. I'm like, I wonder if there's a deck that could be built around that. And I'm like, well, if there was a deck that could be built around that that's any good, I probably would have seen it online somewhere. But with things like Spell Queller and Declaration Stone and Anguish and Making, I don't think people look back and realize, oh, those exile, what else can we do with exile? I'm actually surprised. He posted a deck list. I looked through it. I'm actually surprised that Instant Obliteration wasn't in the sideboard, because that's 3 to 4. That's 3 to 4 creatures right there. And that would be one that I would add if it wasn't rotating out. But that was a really cool deck, and it's one that you know what? If it wasn't rotating out so soon and didn't cost so much, I probably would make it for FNM. And it's one that I definitely want to do on the channel before it rotates out. The main thing that rotates out is the pain lands, which kind of hurt with some of the colorless Eldrazi stuff. And then the final deck was Golgari Sacrifice, formerly known as Golgari Aristocrats. We went 2-1 versus that deck, and I'm actually really pleased to beat that deck, because it's a deck that I almost always lose against, no matter what I play. And actually, like I was telling you, I have an off and on again relationship with Magic. When I started getting back into Magic, I had the choice of using my old deck, and actually I think the first time I did use my old deck in Modern. And that actually is okay. I have a green-white hybrid stuff from Shadowmoor with Oversoul of Dusk and Shield of the Oversoul, Kitchen Finks, all that good stuff. But I decided that I didn't like all the broken stuff in Modern, so I decided to play Standard, even though my Standard deck wasn't very good. And that was the first deck I played against. That and 2 other people were playing green-white or black-white control. And I was like, screw that. Like, what do you like? I thought Standard didn't have broken stuff, and this deck is so broken. Like, he couldn't get in with any creatures because he had too many blockers, and he just cheesed his way into Ormenthal. And I almost quit playing Magic. Like, I was just getting back into it, and I'm like, this is stupid. This is just stupid. I don't want to play against these kind of decks. So being able to beat that deck, it was like, woot! Yay, victory! So like I said, after that 4th match, after that Gruul Ramp deck, I was so pissy. When I was walking to work, I was mentally rehearsing what I would say about how that deck was so totally busted, and I did not want to play it anymore. But I think it's okay. I think the main thing that it doesn't work against is a lot of black control. Because when you think about it, card advantage wise, when you use Eldritch Evolution to sacrifice another creature, you're giving up 2 cards to get the 1. So you're actually taking a card advantage loss. And when you're playing against someone that has a lot of removal, that's just killer. You just can't afford to be doing that. And so that's the main reason why you lose against the black deck. You lose against You lose against Crixus Control. You lose against Gen Control. You lose against Gruul Ramp. and that's just the nature of the deck. No deck can win every match. There's it's like rock paper scissors, and I think this standard is good that there is a rock paper scissors. Some decks work better than others against certain things. I mean, my mono red deck beats Bant like nothing because Bant isn't. I don't think Bant is that good of a deck because my mono red deck just torches it. And people say, "Oh, Bant's the best deck in Standard." It's like, no, I don't agree with that. But my red deck, mono red deck, doesn't handle black either. Couldn't like the decks that um, the decks that my red deck would lose to are the same decks that Evolving Angels lost to, except that my deck also beats green white tokens. My deck can't beat aristocrats, and this deck can. So there's that. And as I said in my first video, there are a few cards that I would change out, and there are a few cards that I think need to be tweaked. And I think that that's still true. And so let's get into that. I'm going to go over to the other screen and show you what I think needs to be changed. Okay, so the first thing that absolutely must happen in this deck is another copy of Eldritch Evolution. I don't know, maybe Dev thought that he was drawing it too much and was clogging up his hand, but if you're going to call the deck Evolving Angels, you should be doing this every game, and with only 3 copies of it, you just aren't. The other major thing, I don't like having so many high casting cost cards, but then again, I don't really know what would change. Thalia's Lancers is kind of actually very useful. I wouldn't use Thalia's Heretic, not in main deck. I would probably move them to the sideboard. I wouldn't run more than 2 Gideons in the sideboard. Maybe put Thalia in the sideboard. Oops. Maybe put Thalia in the sideboard. And then the other thing I would want to do is I would want to run 2 of these Stasis Snares in the main deck, just because I wanted them every match. There was always something against every deck that I wanted them in for, and there's no such thing as a creatureless deck in Standard. That except for the one that SBMTG just posted, which is a black-white burn deck. The only creature in the deck is Thermal Alchemist. Another thing that I would change is I'm not really liking the MELD combo. Bruna is just so expensive. She usually doesn't see play. I did almost get it out versus green-white control. I'd almost move these to the sideboard, to be honest. Oh, that's not true, because I did cast it once to get out... oh, that was the green one. I think I cast it once to get out a human, didn't I? A Tireless Tracker. The other thing that I would add is... The only thing I would change is I'm not liking Primal Druid in this deck. The fact that it has to die to get your basic land... yeah, I know that it's designed to ramp into other creatures, but I'm not feeling that love. And yeah, yes, the one game where we ramped from it right into Gisela, that was awesome. But I would rather have Pilgrim's Eye. And the reason is, well, the reason is the same reason that it's used in Emerge. You get the land as soon as it enters the battlefield. And I know, again, like I said, the point of that card is to 2-drop into Gisela with Eldritch Evolution. With only 3 Eldritch Evolutions, that just wasn't happening. If with the 4th Eldritch Evolution, I'd also run 4 Druids if you do that. With Druids and 4 Eldritch Evolutions, yeah, you might have that happen. But with 3 of each, it's just not happening. So that would be another alternative that you could do. The Pilgrim's Eye helps a little bit better. The other thing with the Pilgrim's Eye is in a chokehold heavy game, you get in for damage. On the flip side, though, the Druid does allow you to block against some early creatures. And honestly, I think that's all the changes. There were a few other things that I really disliked. Maybe I'd go down 2 planar outbursts and put something else on the sideboard. With Kaladesh coming out, maybe there'll be cards in there that you'll want. Um, I I did not like the Oath of Nissas in this deck, and I think almost every time I sideboarded, I said something along the lines of, "I don't understand this in the deck, so I'm going to take them out of the sideboard." But every once in a while, I would play one and go, "Okay, I want this," or there was once when I'm like, "I need a land. I'm going to play Oath of Nissa to get a land," and then I didn't get a land. Um, There was one other thing that I was wanting in this deck, and I remember even saying, I think during one when my opponent played it, it's like, oh, why don't I have Baby Nissa in this deck? Oh, right, it's rotation proof, derp. So, and actually, that is all that I would probably change. I would probably, maybe I would put Linvala in the sideboard, and actually I'm currently sitting at 61. I would move Linvala to the sideboard and take out one of these planar outbursts. Um, and I think that would be the way I would run this deck. Just because that's the way I play. I'm not liking how I'm still not liking how topic this deck is. I think I would also want to take out. See, me, I would take out the Thalia's Lancers and put in something lower, a little bit more aggressive. But again, I play mono red, so there's that. And my other deck that I'm working on and it needs a little bit more love is a Simic Clues, either Simic or Tremor Clues, with almost everything being 3, maybe 4 tops. When I see 5 and 6 and 7 casting costs, I'm like, that deck just won't work. But this does, just barely. This deck just works just barely. You do need a lot of practice with it. If you're not really experienced with Magic, you probably don't want to. If you don't know the decks in the format and don't know exactly what you need to beat against each deck in the format, and that was part of the problem that I had, this deck is not for you. But yeah, with a few changes and a few more tweaks, I actually do recommend that people try this out and give it a whirl and play it by ear. Like, no deck is perfect the first time out, unless you're net decking. And even if you're net decking and you don't understand what half the cards do or half of the reasons for some of these choices, you want to make changes. My red deck, I built my red deck on Fury Blade Vampire. I saw Fury Blade Vampire and go, you know what? Madness decks will work with Fury Blade Vampire. And so I bought all the cards for the deck that I thought would go in the deck, and I wound up having like 50% more cards than I could possibly use. So I wound up building the deck with what I had. Played the deck, and then I realized that I needed other cards that I didn't have. So I bought more cards. And then a week later, I bought other cards that I didn't have. And then literally 3 days before the Alberta Regionals, I was playing it on we have a Wednesday night Magic the Gathering that's at a bar. And one of the guys I played against, the last guy I played against, said to me, like, you need creatures that give more value. And he was saying, and he told me about Sin Prodder, and he told me what I did, and I was like, Sin what? It's like, Sin Prodder. I'm like, Sin what? I was thinking I was saying Sin Fodder. I had no idea what he was saying, because I had never heard of the card. But Sin Prodder, yes, absolutely. That goes in the deck. You'll remember when I was playing against that Crixus deck, I was like, ooh, Sin Prodder, that's in my deck. And I didn't even know about it until then. And he also recommended Abydos Carol Keep and Stromkirk Occultist, which I didn't wind up using the Stromkirk Occultist. Each of my roommates had one Sin Prodder. I wound up getting 2 more from another friend. And then I got the Abbots of Carol Keep literally the day of the tournament. They didn't have any at my FLGS, but the store that hosted the Alberta Regionals, they had a booth there where you can buy cards at the center. And so I was like, oh, I wanted to buy 4, but I only had enough cash to buy 3 because they didn't take Interact because obviously they weren't hooked up at the community center. And so I literally changed my deck the day of the regionals, and I came in 10th. You can't really argue with those results. And that's the trick with Magic is you fine tune it, find what works, you find what doesn't work so well. And even with a deck like this, you want to make changes. Find out what works with your playstyle. Find out what doesn't. Find out what you're comfortable with. Like not everybody likes the same cards. Like I say, I don't particularly like the idea of melding. If it were me, I'd probably take Brunas out completely and put something else in. I can't think what off the top of my head. Something gives value to basically an emerge strategy. Um, Speaking of emerge strategies, I actually think emerge decks are just a little bit better than this, just a little bit. But again, your mileage may vary. Well, I hope you enjoyed this first edition of MTG Deckbusters. If you like what you saw, give us a like and a subscribe. It'll help our channel grow and encourage me to do more. Until next time, thanks for watching, and I'll see you again.